So I've got my wood round on my work table for the moment. I'm not sure that this is the right place to paint this big circle, but it's certainly the right place to prep it. And that's what I'm doing right now. So far, I've sanded it with this medium sanding block just to get some of the imperfections out. Because this is pine, it's soft, and while it was at the store, it got some scratches on it that I want to sort of even out. Doesn't really matter if this is perfectly smooth and flat because it's going to take a horrific beating once I hang it on the garden shed. But in terms of making it paintable, it's certainly easier if I don't have a lot of dings and scratches in it. So what I've been doing is just sanding it with the sanding block and then wiping away the dust so that I can see what I've got. And I did that around the outside too, trying to go with the grain of the wood as much as possible, just to get the little nubby things that are sticking out knocked off, because that'll make it easier to paint later. So now my circle is pretty much sanded. There's still a little ding right here that I wish I could get rid of, but I don't really want to take the time to fill it, so I'm gonna live with it. These are single serve applesauce containers. They also like any sort of snack pack fruit comes packaged in these little things. I love them because they make great water containers. And today they're also going to be lifts for my piece so that it's not sitting on the table and any liquid that I get running off the sides will drip off instead of puddling underneath my circle. I'm just trying to get these in a position so it won't rock. And that seems pretty good. Those of you who've been with me for a while have seen me do this. This is how I prime wood for acrylic. It's a little bit of matte medium and an equal amount of water. I'm not too worried about watering this down too much and breaking down the binder. What I want it to do is sink into the grain of the wood and provide a surface that won't suck paint the way the bare wood will. So I'm going to apply this to the wood, painting with the grain. And I'm painting pretty dry. I don't want to get this soaking wet. Just want a light coat. And I'm working fast because the angle of the work light that I have aimed at this circle shows me what's wet and what's not. And I want to get a coat over the whole thing and make the whole thing wet and shiny. And not miss any spots. So I'm just sort of tilting my head to one side and checking to make sure that I'm not leaving any islands of dry wood. And I'm also going to go around the side kind of applying matte medium to the side and then cleaning up the edge so that I don't have brush strokes going against the grain. And as this dries and sinks into the wood, the grain of the wood starts to raise a little bit because of the water. So I'm gonna have to go back in and sand again, and then maybe apply another coat, and then sand until the grain stops raising up. And that means it's absorbed enough that it's not going to absorb any of my paint when I start painting. This is why I have my work table in the middle of the room instead of up against a wall, so I can walk around to the other side of the table and work from this side. So that my wood dry for about an hour, and felt a little bit rough, so I just grabbed this green scrubby. It's a green kitchen scrubby, and I keep it with my sanding tools. And this just gives it a really light, not quite as sanding, but it just knocks down the roughness a little bit. And it feels a little bit smoother. That first coat just raised the grain a tiny bit, so it feels pretty smooth. And I think that's about all I need to do to it to get it ready for a second coat. And I always wipe it down with a paper towel after roughing up the surface with any sort of sandpaper or anything else, because you want to get rid of the dust. So another coat and probably another hour to let it dry because it's a little humid here today. And I think this will be ready for the next thing, which for this I'm thinking will be gesso. Oh, and I did want to mention that I'm gonna flip this evening and do the same thing on the back side. Because this is gonna go outside, I'm gonna paint the back side a solid color and do the same sort of sealing on the back side that I am on the front to hopefully give this a little bit longer life.